Okay, and we're back with another Zookeeper autocomplete edition. We're going to scour the web and ask Google what people want to know about birds, because people have so many questions. Some of them are great and some of them are interesting. And so let's see what people want to know. Let's start with, how do birds disperse seeds? So this is kind of cool. They swallow seeds, and some fruit seeds are adapted to be swallowed by birds and pass through their digestive tract undisturbed. So as the bird eats a fruit, say, that has some seeds inside, and then flies off to another place, the seed will come out in its waste, and then a new a fruit tree will grow exactly where that bird flew off to. This is why fruit exists, by the way. It's a trick. It's a deal between the fruit tree and the animals that eat fruit, that if animals will disperse the fruit seeds, in exchange, they get a tasty meal. How do birds overcome gravity? They fly! How do birds fly south? This is actually an interesting question because birds have senses that we don't have, and they use some of the senses they do have differently than we do. So for example, birds can use the sun and the stars as a compass by using their observational skills. They can learn patterns of stars that guide them the correct direction. They also have some sense of dead reckoning based on the Earth's magnetic field and potentially some built-in instincts. They will also use maps that are generated on previous migrations. As they follow more experienced birds, they'll learn the sights and the smells. They'll learn landmarks, like forests and mountains and the smell of the ocean, things like that, that help guide them in the correct direction. How do birds feed their young? So there's two different ways. One of them is the one that you're aware of, and that's where the parents will get some food. They'll eat a worm or a bug or whatever. They will partially crunch it up in their crop, and then they'll regurgitate it for the young. The second way, and this is, I have no idea how else I'm going to get this story into a video, so this is the time. There's a thing called fecal sacs, and that is where young robins, say, the mother will bring back a worm, feed it to the babies, and then before she leaves the nest, the babies will produce this membrane encapsulated sack of feces, and the mother will eat that, and that is her reward for bringing the babies food, is that their inefficient digestive systems, there's still some calories left over in there, and the mother gets to eat those. So be very grateful that that is not how human babies work. How do birds hear without ears? Fun fact, they do have ears, so irrelevant question, but now you know. How do birds incubate their eggs? For a lot of species, the mother will have a brood patch on her belly. She'll lose some of her feathers and expose just bare skin. And then when she sits on an egg, the bare skin is pressed up right against the egg, and that keeps the egg very warm and toasty and much closer to the mother's body temperature than if there were insulating feathers in between. How do birds lay eggs? I'm going to make a video about this soon, but maybe I shouldn't spoil anything. So look for that coming up soon. Subscribe if you want to make sure that you're aware of any future videos. How do birds live? Honestly, I want to know this too, because the more I learn about animals, the more I'm like, how does anything live? So I was researching nutrition for a project, and there's about 40 different macronutrients. So there's things like calcium and phosphorus, iron, vitamins, minerals, and all of them interact with each other. So for example, vitamin C will increase the absorption of iron. There's some others that inhibit the absorption of other nutrients. And after reading all of this, I was like, how does anybody balance a diet? There's so many different interactions to keep in mind. So nutritionists, I have no idea how you do what you do, but you're amazing. Anyway, but then there's people who eat nothing but Cheetos for like 6 months, and how does their body even cope with that? How do they survive? So how do birds live? How does anything live? How do birds like to get computer software? There's got to be a joke in there. How do birds like to get computer software? How do birds get computer software? They use install shield gizzard. All right, we got two good questions here. One of them is, how do birds grow feathers? birds have feather follicles the same way that we have hair follicles, and the feather will be extruded from those cells exactly the same way that a hair would. It's actually 3D printing the feather as it comes out through the feather follicles, so that's kind of interesting. I'm going to make a video about that in the future because it's a really interesting topic. Second, how do birds get vitamin D? Most birds, I should say, a lot of birds have a preen gland, an oil gland at the base of their tail, and they'll use their beak, they'll grab some oil from their preen gland and then rub it on the surface of their feathers. Some of that oil contains cholesterol, and cholesterol, when exposed to ultraviolet light, turns into vitamin D. I'm not a medical expert, so I don't know exactly how that works, but that's the basic process of it. And then as they're preening their feathers later, any feathers that have been exposed to ultraviolet light will have vitamin D on them. That's how they get vitamin D. And with that, we'll end this edition of Ask a Zookeeper Autocomplete. If you have any questions about birds, feel free to ask as many as you want in the comments below. I am totally happy to answer questions. I love nerding out about birds, if you haven't noticed. So drop me a line, or you can comment on Twitter. If you're watching this video close to when it comes out, we'll be back with regular updates soon. So subscribe to know when future video comes out. But in the meantime, I appreciate you stopping by to learn what makes life awesome. Okay, I'm going to work on this until I get a good pun. They peep to branch it off of open source projects. They tweet, they ask their nest. I want this to be a joke so bad, and how do people get software? They write their own on the fly.
Their installation wizard.